Welcome to Heal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Hey guys, before we jump back into the podcast, I want to say thank you for listening. But I noticed that you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet. Go to Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube or just scan the QR code in the corner where you'll be able to find multiple podcasts that we have with over 300 episodes that's uploaded right now for your enjoyment. So do that really quickly. Now, get back to the podcast. All right. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Earnest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is healed, whole, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share our podcast on all of your podcast listening platforms, especially our YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network, where not only will you find the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, but you also find our sister podcast, which is the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. So you can find both of our podcasts there, as well as some other podcasts that we have, and some more podcasts on the way that we want you guys to check out. Again, that's the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube. Make sure you guys are checking us out there. Today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Miss Laura. How you doing?
Hello. Thank you for having me, James. Pleasure
No
to be
problem.
here.
Yeah, no problem. First of all, let me say thank you for being here, because you could have been anywhere else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. So, Laura, let's jump right into this thing. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to my audience and tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Yes. So I'm Laura Robertson. I go by Laura Empowers on my Empower spelled with an HERS on all of my social media channels. And I am a CEO of Beautiful Potential Consulting, which is a beauty branding and business coaching company. And we have several different multiple brands underneath it as a DBA. So we have the beauty side, we have the beauty salon suites that we have there. We have the beauty supply store. The branding side, I do marketing, I do websites, I do branding and coaching for entrepreneurs that need to be visible and seen and heard. And so I do business coaching as well. And so I'm an author, coach, and a speaker as well. That's how I met the wonderful Earnest. We are a part of a speaking group together, Next Level. So yeah, that's all in a nutshell who I am. On a personal note, I am a widow and a mother and grandmother of 7.
Yeah, think about it.
It's 7 of them.
Yes. And so we met a while back and had a chance to connect a little earlier this year. And you're doing so many amazing things, and I was just really wanted to come out and support you. I think it was the grand opening for the juice bar at that time, maybe it was. But she was doing so many amazing things. I definitely congratulate you on all your success. But along with success, unfortunately, sometimes we have loss. In this podcast, we talk a lot about healing and grief and dealing with those, all the things that comes with that.
Absolutely.
And so on this journey that you've been on, and I'll ask you to, tell a little bit more about it before we dive into, everything that we're going to talk about now, because it's dealing with, a recent loss that you had And a similar sort of loss that I had as well.
Mhm.
But I'll let you share your experience, and then I'll just kind of chime in a little bit. So tell us a little bit about the your recent loss and the process and where you are now.
Yes. So about a little over a year ago, I lost my husband last April, April 7th, to cancer. And after a 6 month fight, he took his last breath on April 7th. And it's totally out of nowhere, unexpected. He became diagnosed with stage 4. And, we were very optimistic that he
Mm,
was going to fight through it. But unfortunately, he ended up passing away. And that was something that I was not expecting, to
yeah,
become a widow at 49 years old, right? After spending 20 years, like 20 years with someone side by side with you, it was a very devastating loss. And so then at that time, just 3 days later, my granddaughter was born. So I had
mm,
a granddaughter 3 days after he took his last breath. I had my granddaughter take her first breath. And so I became a foster mom to my granddaughter. I already had my grandson. So now, just overnight, becoming a widow and a basically a mother of four, because I still had my
mm,
two minor, my older girls, they're older, but I had two minor sons, and then I took in two of my foster grandchildren. So like just overnight, having to basically go through grieving the loss of my husband, but now have a newborn, that I'm now being a mother again, right? Like
yeah,
deprived, and you're like, just going through the motions. And some days it's just like, okay,
yeah,
today, like what's going on? But you just keep pushing through,
yeah.
there- yeah. So
Yeah, and so the reason why I said is similar to a loss that I experienced
Mhm.
because I lost my mother-in-law at the time to cancer, and then, I think it was like 3 years later, I lost my own mom to cancer,
Wow.
and my mom, like your husband, it was a
Mhm.
quick fight, and and I say this, and some people I don't know. I think some people may get offended by it, but I think you only get offended by it if you haven't been through it, right? So when my mother-in-law had cancer, it was a long process, right? So when she first found out, they originally gave her like 3 months to live, and she ended up living like 3 years.
Mm.
However, that last year was really bad, and it was where the point where when she had to go to hospice,
Mhm.
we actually all walked in the hospice together. And the people at the hospice was like, well, where's the patient? And she was like, I'm right here. And
Oh,
they was
wow.
like, we're so used to seeing people when they come, they
Yeah.
usually being rolled in a wheelchair or they already on the bed laid on the bed or whatever, but she was still able to walk and everything.
Mm.
However, that process, the cancer started really, going through its process, and to be able to, or not be able to, but to have to watch someone go through that full transition that
Yeah.
cancer does.
Right.
So when my mom got cancer, and as quick as it was, and I always say I definitely never wanted to see my mom go, but having
Right.
already gone through that with someone else that I loved, I was like, I was kind of, I would rather you go now than to go
Mhm.
through that whole process,
Absolutely.
and I think that only someone who's experienced that, who's walked someone through that entire process, to where, like I said, when we walked into the hospice, she was able to walk and talk and do her own thing, and then get to all the way to the point where now you can't move at all and you're
Wow.
unresponsive, like that whole journey. And it was uh I want to say probably about a year. This was like a whole year's journey for her to get to that point. So again, when my mom passed, I was like, I definitely didn't want you to go, but I would rather you go
Mhm.
quickly than to have to
Right.
go through that whole process again.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that's why I said people. I don't think people understand that unless they've had to watch a loved one go through that whole process.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about your grieving. As we working through our grief and through those things, and even your personal healing. That I
Mhm.
think a lot of times, some people who have not gone through the grieving process as we have, that they don't understand that it's not like a cookie cutter.
Right.
It's not like a cookie cutter
Exactly.
process. Like it's everybody has their own grief, and their own grief journey is unique, right?
Right.
And so
Absolutely.
even as a part of your healing, one of the things that you've said is that healing it isn't linear, right? It's
It's
not just like
not.
even across the board. It has its own ups and downs. And so, talk to me a little bit about your
Absolutely.
experience and even how you navigated, some of the ups and downs of your own healing.
Absolutely. No, it's definitely not linear because you're going to go through that phase of, denial, right? Then you're going
Mhm.
to go through that phase of grief, then the trauma, the heartbreak. Like all of this is so new to you that you just sometimes you're in shock and you just don't know how to deal with it or how to process through it. And it's like 1 minute you're okay, right? Okay, I got
Mhm.
this. And then something could happen or trigger that either reminds you of the loss. And then you're just like a hot wreck, right? Or
Mhm.
you're riding in the car to an event, and then all of a sudden something pops up in your head. Then you're boo-hooing in the car before you even walk in the event. Then you got to
Mhm.
put your smile back on. It's like, like,
Yeah.
so it's definitely learning how to live again after being in survival mode, right?
Yeah.
And just learning how to see the beauty of life after having to watch someone that you spent the last 20 years with go through that cycle of loss, right? And so but on a different perspective, it also gives you a whole new meaning of life.
Yeah.
It also teaches you to appreciate the moments that you have, because just like you experience, you just never know. Everyone has an expiration date, right? We all do, and we're all going to go there one day. So what are we going to do with the hours and the time that we do have? Are we going to just sit around and just let ourselves, turn into a cobweb and just,
Mhm.
get into this dark space? Or are we going to do things that is going to allow us to break through and not allow this pain to destroy us, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes you end up losing family, like in the process, and different people see you kind of differently. This is my first time being a widow, right? And so I've learned that some of the family members, like my cousins or, different people that were once a big part of my life, like it's like, okay, it's like, I don't know what it is. It's like, do I have like a stigma on me or something? Like,
Mhm.
I don't get the calls anymore. Like, I don't get the invites anymore. And I'm like, just like on this island on my own. And it's like, once upon a time when my husband was sick and when all this was going on, there was all this support. And then now all of a sudden afterwards, like, where's everybody at?
Mhm.
It's like, now that the grief is done, now that, the funeral's over, like now it's crickets,
Yeah.
to a certain degree. But then also I look back and I kind of like, okay, is it me? Like, is it because I've changed? Is it because now they're trying to kind of adapt to this new version of me, the healing version, and they're kind of taking a step back because maybe I've been distanced, or maybe I'm going through my process and they don't know how to handle me? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
a bunch of different ways to look at it. But this is my first time going through this, so I don't know what the answer to that is. That's
Yeah.
why I say it's not linear. It's like you're gonna go through all these different emotions and all these different aspects of your life. The dynamics of your life is changed. And people will ask, like, somebody asked me the other, do you feel you've changed? Like one of my best friends growing up, because I'm like, sharing what I just shared with you,
Mhm.
I'm like, it's not the same anymore. And like, all these things, she's like, well, do you feel you've changed? I looked at her and I said, of course I have.
Yeah.
Of course I have. Like, I'm no longer a wife. I'm now a widow trying to navigate life, and I'm like now a single mom. Of yes, I have changed. My identity is no longer that anymore. So yes, of course I have changed. And she's like, okay, So, but that was an eye opening question too. Like she's like,
Yeah.
you think you've changed? And I'm like, I had to think about it for a minute, and I'm like, yes, absolutely
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. And
Lot,
you,
yeah, it changes you.
yeah, and you mentioned a lot of things. A couple of things I want to touch on too. I actually started doing these on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I do a your healing journey live, right? And I go live at 4 o'clock
Okay.
Central Standard Time. And today, that was one of the things. Two of the things that you mentioned was two of the things that
Oh
I
wow.
talked about was, and I can't think of what it was that you said, but but talking about we were talking about people changing,
Mhm.
and one of the things that you mentioned about people not necessarily knowing even how to relate to you
Yeah.
when things happen, because and I think that's part of the reason why there's the space too,
Mhm.
because they're
Mhm.
like, okay, what do I say or what don't I say? You know what I
Right.
mean? And it's like,
Exactly.
do I recognize, like,
Mhm.
uh do I say something, lets her know, okay, I
Mhm.
understand
Mhm.
that, the loss that you're going through, or do I not mention it at all? And
Right.
I think a lot of times people just don't know, they don't know which way to go.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's important that we kind of help walk them through that journey. But I also think that even when we're kind of going through that journey ourselves, that we're able to kind of even acknowledge how we feel through it, right? Because it is difficult, and it can be difficult.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Mentioned about, just things changing overnight, of being, a wife one day, the next day, you're a widow, and then the next day now you're a mother/grandmother, all in the same week,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I think people don't recognize a
They
lot of times,
don't.
because when you even mentioned about when
Mhm.
things change after the funeral, like,
Yeah.
to people on the outside looking in, it's like, all right, the funeral is over, all right, we're done. And then it's
Yeah.
like, but you still have to go through, the day to day. And I think one of the things that people don't recognize is when we think about losses, especially losing a loved one, a lot of
Mhm.
times we think about the big picture, you
Right.
know, but it's those little things that trigger you, right? It's the little things like, oh, why the garbage didn't get checked out today? It was like, oh, right, he usually takes the garbage out. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's like,
It's
the house
piled up
keys
in my
under
garage
the
as we speak right
bed.
now. Someone come help. I need to rent a husband. Like,
Yeah, but it's those little things that people don't
mhm.
recognize, that
Exactly.
especially in your case, having spent
Yeah.
20 years with someone, is those little things that
Yeah.
person took care of, that you didn't even
Absolutely.
have to think about,
Yeah.
or the way that they showed up for you in different
Yeah.
spaces, that now you're showing up alone. And you mentioned about the parties, and like,
Yeah.
like, do we invite her to the couples
Right.
party now?
Right. Exactly.
It's like, so all of those things definitely play a part.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I wanna talk about, just change it up a little bit, because you know I met you. I think we met in person. I think it was after the passing and everything. And again, we started off this whole conversation with you talking about all the things that you were doing, and having such an amazing accomplishments and things that you're working on and have accomplished even after the fact. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I know that it took a lot of healing for yourself to get you to the point where you was like, all right, let me push through, but then not only push through, but then also be able to, do some of the things that you do. And I know that it took a amount of self love and self
Mm.
healing that you had to
Yes.
do that work for yourself in order to
Absolutely.
get you to the space that you are now. So tell us a
Right.
little bit about that journey of kind of finding yourself. And you even mentioned it about, being asked, did you change? And it was like, yeah, I changed a whole lot. You know what I mean? But
like,
being able
you
to
know, I have.
yourself, accept
Yeah.
yourself and love yourself in the midst of those changes, and
Yeah.
then still to be able to push forward. Tell me a little bit about that journey for you.
My road to self-love is just kind of like shedding away my old identity because just as I mentioned, I mean, like for 20 years, I was, you know, a wife and I had to learn how to be just me again. Like I had to
Mhm.
learn to be a single woman again. So that took some time to like really love on myself, do the things that I enjoy doing, taking vacations, taking a girls trip for once,
Mhm.
because the times that I was married, you're not able to do certain things, right? Because you have a family, you're obligated to working, you're obligated to serving your family and the things that you have to do, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't have that. Like that's not me. So what can I do to make myself whole again,
Mhm.
right? What can I
Mhm.
do? So like I made a goal to, like, even if I don't feel like it, to get up, get myself dressed, even if I'm not going
Right.
anywhere, because when you look good, you kind of feel better, right?
Yeah.
And even when you're out and about, when you look crappy or bummy, you don't want to talk to nobody. You could be missing opportunities, right? When you just go out the house looking any kind of way, you're like, oh, that's somebody that has connections. Like I kind of
Mhm.
want to talk to them, but no, I can't talk to them right now.
Right.
Just loving on yourself and just doing those things that really pour back into yourself. And I think my road to self love was also finding the circle who are also going to pour into me, so that way that self love can be nurtured by your
Mhm.
surroundings and by the people that are around you, right? And
Yeah.
also the self love of setting boundaries and not feeling guilty about it, right? Because you have your needs as well, right? But if you are so used to pouring and pouring and pouring and not choosing yourself and just keep pouring out, you're not going to have anything left, right? And then
Mhm.
then what happens, right? You're not going to accomplish those things that you're supposed to be accomplishing, and you're just like going to be back in that corner turning into a
Mhm.
cobweb again. So it is one of those things that is still like a progress, right? A continuous progress, right? Because some days you don't feel like getting up, you don't feel you know that self-love, and you just want to just lay in the bed all day, but you have to show up. And for me, I feel like, with my followers and stuff, that's what also motivates me. I have to show up for them. Now, when you have people messaging you and inboxing you that because you got through what you went through, because you
Mhm.
lost your husband and you still showed up with a smile on your face and inspiring us, like, you gave me hope, right? So I'm getting messages that I'm actually saving people's lives by showing up. So I'm like, all right, the more that I practice self-love, the more I'm making an impact on the world and on the people that are around me, that's watching me. Because people are watching you, I
Yeah.
mean, especially when you and I, especially when we are in the public, right? Especially when we are like speakers, or when people see us as role models or community leaders and things like that, they're watching us. So we have to practice self-love, and we have to make sure that we're choosing us, because if we don't, then we're not serving anybody, right? We have to serve
Yeah.
ourselves first before we can be able to serve anybody else. So yeah.
Yeah, and I want to touch on a couple of things that you said that I think is very important. The first thing is the circle that you have around you, and I tell people all the time, please make sure that whether it's the circle of friends that you have, or going to like bereavement support groups and things of that nature, where you are connecting with people with like-minded people and like-minded experiences,
Yes.
because that was one of the things that helped me a lot when I was grieving the loss after my mom passed. I started going to bereavement support and being a part of those sessions, and talking to people that was grieving as well, and listening to other people's stories, and all of that. And that definitely made a huge impact on me and
Mhm.
helped me get through that process.
Yeah.
Even to the fact that after my sessions was over, I stayed there for over a year volunteering,
Mm.
just to continue to be there and to help other people. So I think that's definitely important. The people that you are around, your new circle, whether it's a circle of friends, circle of like-minded people, that circle of support
Right.
that you need to help you through that season. So I definitely want to say that. And also the boundaries. I think the boundaries is really important, because a lot of times we don't we have to relearn how to say no, right? Especially when we're the go-to person, especially when we're the person that people always call. And sometimes we, as the go-to person, don't have a go-to person,
We
and
don't.
then when you have a spouse, and that spouse kind of becomes that person for you to be able to
Exactly.
have those discussions and to
Yeah.
share what you're going through and all of that, and then you lose that person. Now you're really like, okay, I don't have the thing that I need to pour into me for me
Right.
to continually be able to support into you, at least at the amount that I was. And so you have to put those boundaries in place of like,
Mhm.
okay, I can only do so much, and then that's it.
Exactly.
you know
Exactly.
and I think that sometimes people don't understand, but I think those that love you and want to
Yep.
understand will take the time to be able to find out what that is.
Yeah.
And lastly, I want to talk about something that I actually
Mhm.
learned in the bereavement groups when I was going there, when you talked about um, finding who you were now, like
Yeah.
recognizing who you are as a new person. One of the terms that I learned in bereavement was your new normal. It's like
Mhm.
this will
Yep.
never
The new
be
normal.
normal. Yeah,
Yeah.
it will never be normal the way it was, but this
Mhm.
is the new normal. This
Yep.
is this is how things is now. And
Yep.
when we're able to accept that new normal, okay, there are some things that changed. There are some things that got better. There are some things that may have gotten worse,
Yep.
but accepting that, and then once
Right.
you accept it, then you're able to then still be able to find the joy that you have that's still in the life that you have. So you mentioned
Exactly.
about taking the girl trips and things
Mhm.
that you probably wouldn't have done with when your husband was here, because it's like, all right, this is our trip. But now it's like, okay, let me spend some time with my friends. Let me spend some time with that circle, that core group that really understands me and really wants to spend time with me.
Right.
But you never open yourself up to that if you wasn't able to accept that this is the new normal now. Like this is how it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
the last thing I want to talk about, well, the last question I have, and then I want to talk about some other things that you're
Okay.
that you're doing, because you're doing so many amazing things. But I want to talk about redefining what
Mhm.
strength is, right?
Right.
Especially when we're talking about the woman, right?
Yeah.
Because you were a wife, you were a mom, then you became a mom slash grandmom. You are an
Exactly.
entrepreneur, just all the things that you're doing and have been doing. And then
Mhm.
sometimes, people will look at you and be like, all right, oh, you're so strong. It's like, yeah, but it's
Yeah.
different. You know what I'm saying? And it gets to the point sometimes that, I'm not a woman, but I know from conversations that sometimes women just like, don't call me strong,
Right.
because that kind of
Yeah.
gives me it kind of almost gives me
Mhm.
almost like a pass. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where if
Yeah.
I'm strong, then you don't acknowledge the fact that I'm still human as well. You don't
Exactly.
acknowledge the fact that I'm still grieving. You don't acknowledge the fact that yes, I am strong in this moment, but that doesn't mean I don't have all these feelings and everything
Exactly.
else that
Exactly.
I'm going through. And so even in your experience, having to number one, find that new definition of strength for yourself, finding that self-love, finding that inner strength, and then
Right.
also being able to communicate that with others so that they don't
Mhm.
just put the label on you as strong and become passive. What has kind of been that uh changed, should I say, and even that experience of, you know what, let me show you who I am. Yes, I am strong, but let me
Right.
also let you know that there are some kinks in his armor that,
Right.
can
Yeah.
need some
Yeah.
oils and
Yeah. Yeah.
again.
No, I'm super, transparent that, strength is not always pretty, right?
Mhm.
You have to go through and be honest with what you're going through, knowing when to rest, being honest that, yeah, this is painful.
Yeah.
And it's just also, being able to overcome all that and being able to rebuild. And I talk about this a lot, like, um, hurt and healing can happen at the same time,
Mhm.
right? One doesn't trump the other. So you could still be in pain, but you could still all focus on your healing at the same time. So I think that some people, they sometimes one-minded, right? They see it as you can only be one thing. Like if you're hurting, you can't be healing, right? But you can do both at the same time. You can still be in pain but still work on the things that are going to allow you to heal and get over the pain. It can
Mhm.
happen at the same time, right? It's rebuilding even when nobody's seeing that you're rebuilding, or breaking down even when nobody's
Mhm.
seeing you breaking down, because those breakdowns happen. Those breakdowns happen. It just happened the other day when I was just, you know cleaning my room, because some of my late husband's stuff is still in my room, and it's like, then I find his kinko hat, or the, what do you call those hats, like that he always wears. So I found the hat, his favorite hat that he always wears, and all of a sudden, there we go again. It's that
Yeah.
reminder of the absence, right? It's the reminder, like, okay, wow, like, you're never coming back, like, there it
Yeah.
is. So I just stood in my room and just, like, started pouring down. And it's like, okay, those are the moments where it's you're, people don't see, but it's okay. Strength is allowing yourself to have those moments,
Mhm.
because those moments, but don't let it define you, like, don't stay there. It's okay to break down, but don't stay there. It's okay to allow yourself to be vulnerable, but don't stay there. Be honest with your feelings, be honest with your pain, and be honest with what you're dealing with and what you're going through, but also knowing how to find the things to pour back into yourself. So you are hurting and healing journey can happen at the same time. Both your hurt, your healing journey, and all that can all happen at the same time. And, sometimes people don't see it that way. And I remember when I had just lost my husband, like within a month later, um, I decided I was going to go to an event, right? And it was like, some people looked at me like they saw a ghost. They couldn't believe, like, whoa, she just, like, her husband just passed. She just buried her husband. And literally people were coming up to me at that event and looked like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for what happened, but why are you out already? Like, people have this stigma on widows, and like, what? Well, I heal differently, right?
Mhm.
And my strength is pushing through that moment of weakness and actually showing up. I'm a social person. If I don't push myself to be around people, I am going to melt down and
Mhm.
break down slowly. So I had to be at that event. I had to be out. But to them, everybody heals differently, right? So they
Yeah.
saw me, that they'd seen a ghost, and they're just like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't, like, literally, like, almost like almost like an insult, like,
Yeah.
why are you out already? You just buried your husband, kind of thing. Like, if I were you, I'd be home and, like, under my blanket for a whole year or something, something, something. Well, I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what? That's you. This is me, and this is how I'm grieving, and this is how I'm healing, is to be out. And so that's where I feel like the strength comes in, right? Pushing through no matter what, but also recognizing that it's okay to be, in pain, and it's okay to do that, but also walking away from what keeps you down, right?
Yeah.
And being able to have that strength to, like, okay, I know I'm feeling this way, but I need to push through and go do it anyways, get out there anyways, And so that's what I feel that's, strength is.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and it's important that everyone recognizes that we all grieve differently.
mhm.
All of our grief is unique to our
Yeah.
experiences, is unique to our
Mhm.
lifestyle.
Mhm.
And when you lose someone, like I'm still here, I'm still alive. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So I didn't die with that person. You know what I mean? So it's like how long you want me to lay down and die too? It's like I have to keep it moving and
exactly.
and
Exactly.
another thing you talked about, having those moments uh, where you have those triggering moments, or you have
Yeah.
those moments where you just by yourself. And I always have to, make sure I tell people too that make sure you're taking out time to grieve. A lot of times when we push through, if we don't take out time and we don't sit time aside for grief,
Mhm.
to kind of process it, I would say grief is a bully. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And if you don't give it the attention that it needs, then it's going to push through on its own. And
yeah.
most of the time, it's going to push through at a time that's not,
Mm,
beneficial for you. You're be in the middle of
absolutely.
something important, and then all of a sudden you start crying and can't stop, and it's like, you're supposed to be giving a speech, you
Mhm.
know. But it's
Mhm,
because we don't take
mhm.
out that time to give grief the attention that it needs. And so,
Right,
even when we're grieving, if you're at home, not saying that you won't get triggered, not saying that
right.
different things won't happen during the day and you just can't stop crying. I remember my brother, this part was like a year, maybe a year after my mom had passed. My brother lived out of state, and he came home for a while and had been to the house. And then again, this was like a year later, so he had been to my mom's house plenty of times, during that year. But it was just this particular day. He drove to the house and he was pulling into the driveway. And the way that my mom's house was, the driveway ran along the side of the house, and there
Mm,
was just one window right here in the front of the house where my mom's bedroom was. And
mhm.
he said he pulled in the driveway like he had done so many times, and just happened to look up at that window and
Oh,
just automatically start
yeah,
crying.
yeah,
And it was just like that, just that moment, that thing was the thing that triggered him right there. He just probably sat in the car and cried for like 30 minutes,
yeah,
before he
yeah,
was able to
yeah.
put himself together. And so, not saying that even when you take out time to grieve and you are processing your grief, that you won't have those outbursts, because every now and then it's just what it is. You hear something that reminds you of that person, you smell something that reminds you of that person.
Right,
Whatever it is, it's just something that triggers you in the moment, and then you're like, oh my God, you know.
mhm.
But if we are taking out the time to process the grief, it'll happen less and less,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
then even when it does happen, because we're able to process and we've been processing it, then we're able to work ourselves through it and not just fall apart.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
Laura, I want to say thank you so much for
Yeah,
sharing, your
absolutely.
story and sharing that part. But I want to talk about a couple other things that you've accomplished as well, even outside of that. One
Mhm.
part that we didn't talk about was your history of even coming and being here, being
Mhm.
I was a refugee. Is that the right
Mhm.
word? I want to make sure I'm saying the right word.
Yes.
So share a little bit about that, because you wrote a book and everything about it.
I
I
did,
want
I
to
did,
share a little
yes.
bit about
Mhm.
that.
So, yeah, so my story is very crazy and very unique. Like when people hear my story, it has brought tears to some. A lot of, I mean, a lot of people like they can't believe it, right? And so, especially when I tell them, especially with this day and age with ICE going around, like I'm like, oh yeah, I
Mhm.
don't have a birth
Yeah.
certificate. They're like, what? You don't have a birth certificate? I'm like, no, I don't have a birth certificate. I was born homeless. So I literally don't have a physical birth certificate
Mm.
because I was born homeless. After my family had fled the secret war on Laos, a lot of people don't know this, but during the Vietnam War, there was a secret war on our country, Laos, and because our country is a landlocked country in between the North and South Vietnam. And if anyone had learned about the Vietnam War, it's between the South and North Vietnam.
Mhm.
And so because our country is a landlocked country, there's a trail It's called the Ho Chi Minh Trail, where the North communists were coming through to get to the South in order to take over that part. So, and during that time, the CIA, the US CIA, led a secret bombing mission on our country. And so that part of Laos was heavily bombed for 9 years. I mean, like, if you think about one whole plane load of bombs coming down on our country for 9 consecutive years, 24/7, 24/7 coming down. And so if you look up the secret war in Laos, you'll see that those bombs are still killing children, farmers right now till this day, because those cluster bombs didn't all explode. So, so 20,000 more people have died since. And during that time, probably about, I think 200,000 to 400,000 people were killed during during the secret war in Laos. And so that, when the American troops had pulled out, that left our country vulnerable. So the communists invaded and took over our country. And my father, you could read more of it in my book, $40 and a Dream, which I do talk about our journey and how my dad was captured as a prisoner of war and how he escaped and all that, and how our family came to America with just $40 and a Dream, which is the name of my first book. And so, and so that shares my story of that journey and coming to America, and just what it was like to grow up as a Lao refugee, as an Asian American in the United States, and what that looks like, and to where I am today. And, the little surprise caveat to that is, a lot of people, they see me now today, right? And they don't realize it was a journey. Just like grief isn't linear, success ain't linear either, because this version of me had to shed a few different versions before I even got to this version, right? Like the shy refugee child that was bullied for being too Asian, then the too Asian girl who was too American for her family, right? Because, you forgot about our culture. Now you want to be other things, and so I had other friends that were white, Black, Hispanic, and so I'm trying to be more Americanized, and that was frowned upon. And so I came into like a very dark stage of my life as a teenager, and I didn't know who I was. I went through this identity crisis, and I was hanging out with the wrong crowd, like they don't, like, they see my version now. They haven't seen the gangster Laura. Like, they haven't seen the, they ain't seen the gangster, the fighting Laura. They haven't seen the, the troublemaker Laura, and so I went through that teenage life, right? And so ended up running away to Kansas City, and that led me into the loving arms of my mama Sonia. So this little Asian girl was taken in by a Black family, right? And so that part of me, growing up with a Lao household, our culture by nature, we're not affectionate, right? And so I always had to question my parents' love because it wasn't part of our culture. And I always see my friends getting hugs and being told I love you, from their parents and all of that. And so I'm like, and my dad would tell me oh no, you're just supposed to know that we love you. Like, we don't tell you, right? And so there was hugging and all that wasn't natural. So then to go from that, I think God knew what he was doing, right? Because he took me from that just so I knew what that looked like, from a toxic environment growing up to okay, I'm going to place you with this strong Black woman who's going to be your mother. And if you've seen our picture, she looks more like my birth mom than my actual mom. Like, that's how God works, right? And people thought she was actually my mom when, she would come up to my school, to my events and stuff. They thought my dad was Asian and I had a light-skinned Black mom. So nobody messed with me because I went in the inner city, Kansas City, all Black school, metal detectors. Like, I was, they thought I was every Malaysian girl or something, but I'm all Asian. So like, God took me from that to a Black household, which is a total opposite, right? It's family time. It's, oh, I love you, baby. You're strong. You're this, you're that. Like Mama Sonia really, really poured into me and allowed me to embrace my teenage years. Like, you're beautiful. Stop dressing like that. I was dressing like a thug, right? And so she like, no, we going to the store. You're gonna dress like a lady, So I came to her gangster, right? I'm like, yeah, I had like my cake khakis and my,
Yeah.
like, so she's like, no, baby, no, you gonna dress feminine, like you're gonna love yourself and you're gonna be, powerful, and you're gonna use your voice and you're gonna have a backbone. And she's taught me self-love. And you go from sticky rice and beef jerky to my first taste of soul food at 15, and I'm sitting here like, where's my sticky rice papaya salad? Like Mama Sonia, like, oh no, baby, that's greens. I'm like, Mama Sonia, what's this? Throw some hot sauce in there, girl. Put some cornbread, And she like, I said, what's this? It's pinto beans. She's like, it's pinto beans, baby. I loved it. It was just delicious. So I grew up with Mama Sonia's cooking, Grandma Bessie. We had holidays and stuff. It was just a totally different environment. And then, just being like surrounded by love, right? And so that really helped me to shape me into who I am. Although even after that, I still went through like toxic relationships just because of my childhood, right? And now being that I'm older now, I understand why. It's because my parents didn't have help with their mental health, right? Because they did leave a traumatic life experience, facing war, and they were on survival mode. And like, I'm thinking back and I'm like, my mom was only 25 years old. She had to uproot 3 kids to an unknown country. And so not seeing her family ever, eventually 20 something years later, yeah, she saw them. But like at that time, not knowing if she would ever see her family again, so she was growing up, she was very angry. Like, and so that toxic environment of what they went through it's like generational trauma. It got passed down to me, right? And so, so I still was trauma bonding and finding relationships that, I was attaching myself to the partners that were like that. So I'm still going through trying to overcome that, right? And so learning how to overcome those parts of me that caused me to be trauma bonding, and really finding, really self-reflecting on myself to try to find what healthy relationships look like, and really identifying what that is going to look like moving forward. So.
Yeah. And again, you've done so amazingly, that if I didn't know, what I mean, I wouldn't be able to be able, like, really, you went through what,
Yes. Yeah, you see the gangster, Laura.
Right.
You don't want that gangster Laura to come out. No.
Right.
But yeah.
But you've done so many great things. You wrote the book. You started the doll line of the Loud Dolls. And you've written several books, and we'll definitely make sure that we have at least a link to one of the book, the $40 in a Dream book. And then when you guys go to Amazon, you can look up the other books and stuff. I want to talk about one more thing before we get in.
My website also has, a link to all of that. It's www.lauraempowers, Laura, and then empowers, EMPOWHERS. That'll have the links to Amazon, or they can order it through me. I can mail them a signed copy as well. So through my website, I can send them a signed copy. But if they want to go directly to Amazon, they can also go through my website, because it does show all of my books on there.
Great. We'll make sure that we have all that information in the show notes. And one more thing I want to talk about before I let you go is the podcast. The podcast. So you started the podcast, the Soul Sister podcast. Or
Soul Sis podcast. Yes, we started Soul Sis podcast, and then we all got busy, so we're still trying to reorganize that. But it's the 3 of us. myself, my girlfriend Carlotta, who I met through the healing phase of before, so they were a part of my journey through that. And then my girlfriend Dominatrix, all of us, the three of us, found strength in sisterhood. That's what Soul Sis, SIS. And it's an offspring of Blasian Soul podcast, which is a podcast my husband and I had together, was Blasian Soul podcast, him being Black, I'm being Asian. So we had Blasian Soul, which highlighted the community leaders and entrepreneurs of the Black and Asian communities. So now that I'm past that stage of my life and I'm in my healing stage, so now we started Soul Sis podcast, is Strength in Sisterhood. And we kind of paused that. And in the process of them not having time to, us not having time to collaborate, I took it upon myself to start Empowered Purpose podcast, where I also, share my healing journey, but also bring in other people on as well to share their purpose and what they've gone through in their lives and stuff too. So, but yes.
All right. And yeah, I just wanted to get that out there. We'll definitely have all that information in the description and everything. So Laura, once again, I want to say thank you so very much for being on. I want you to have the last word. I want you to leave us with a word of advice, motivation, however you feel, and also with your social media handles and all of those things. So I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that while we have a message from our sponsor. And then we'll come right back. All right. Give us a second.
Sounds good.
Hey guys, this podcast is sponsored by the Deal to Heal School for Living. That is our online community on the school platform. You guys can go there and check it out absolutely free for the first 7 days. And while you're there, take advantage of all the free resources that we have. And if you decide to stay, it's only $27 a month. And each month you have access to a new workshop. So go check that out at the Deal to Heal School for Living on the school platform. Just scan the QR code in the corner and you guys will be able to get there. All right. We'll see you soon. All right. Once again, Laura, I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story and your expertise. I want you to have the last word. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, so this is, a podcast on healing and being able to overcome that. A few things that come to mind is, healing isn't about pretending that it does not hurt. It's about learning that the hurt does not control you anymore, not allowing that to control you. And strength is not silence. So sometimes strength is finally sharing your truth and being able to allow yourself to be vocal. And if you are hurting, to be able to have that support system, as I mentioned earlier. And a lot of us, including myself, I know that I'm not who I was before the pain hit me, before the grief hit me. But I know that because of it, I'm becoming someone powerful because I'm able to help other people using my voice to channel that energy into something more positive and allowing my pain to turn into my purpose of serving others and being able to help them through that journey as well. And, just be patient with yourself. Allow yourself to go through those moments of healing. Give yourself some time and space. And give yourself some grace during this hard time. You have, especially if you're a mom like myself, we have so much on our plates. Just allow yourself grace and know that everything doesn't have to be done right away. Like, put it aside and allow things to just be, right? And allowing yourself time to heal so you can move forward with strength.
All right. I love it. And we'll make sure we have all of the your information in the description. So thank you once again to my listeners. Thank you guys for tuning in once again to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.